He stood in front of the camera, smiled, and asked the world to help find his missing family. But here's what nobody knew in that moment. He already knew exactly where they were. Section 1. The perfect family. On the surface, the Watts family had it all. Shanann, energetic, ambitious, fiercely devoted to her girls. Bella and Celeste, two little kids who lit up every room they walked into. And Chris, the quiet, reliable husband, the kind of man nobody ever worried about. Their social media was picture perfect. Vacations, birthday parties, smiling faces. But social media doesn't show what happens behind closed doors. Because behind that picture, finances were crumbling, arguments were mounting, and the marriage was quietly falling apart. What nobody knew was that Chris had already started imagining a life without them. Section 2. The double life. Friends described Chris as passive, low-key, never raised his voice, never caused a scene. But here's the thing about someone who avoids every hard conversation. The problems don't disappear. They just go underground. And then, a coworker entered the picture. An affair began. And suddenly, Chris wasn't just a husband and a father anymore. He was living two completely separate lives. One at home, one in secret. Shanann started noticing the signs. Shorter texts, no affection, conversations that felt like pulling teeth. She asked him directly, "Do you still love me?" His answer didn't reassure her, but what she didn't know was that Chris wasn't thinking about a divorce. He was thinking about something far darker. Section 3, the night everything ended. Just after 1 a.m., Shanann came home from a business trip. A security camera captured her walking through the front door. That was the last time anyone would ever see her alive. Inside the house, Bella and Celeste were asleep in their beds. The neighborhood was dead quiet. Everything looked completely normal, but nothing was normal. Hours later, according to Chris's own confession, an argument broke out about the marriage, about the future, about everything that had been building for months, and it ended in violence. Shanann was killed inside her own home. But the nightmare, it wasn't over, because the girls were still upstairs, still asleep, still alive. What happened next shocked even veteran investigators. Before the sun came up, Chris loaded his truck. A neighbor's security camera caught him backing into the driveway, making trips back and forth, loading things into the vehicle. At the time, it looked like a man heading to work early. Later, it became the most critical piece of evidence in the entire case. He drove to the oil field where he worked, and what investigators found there will stay with you. Section 4, the investigation. By mid-morning, alarm bells were going off. Shanann had missed her appointments, wasn't answering calls, wasn't responding to messages. That wasn't like her, not even close. One friend didn't wait. She drove straight to the house. Nobody answered. She called the police. Officers arrived expecting a routine welfare check. What they walked into was the beginning of a murder investigation. Chris was there, calm, relaxed, almost too relaxed. He told them Shanann had taken the girls and left after a fight. But something didn't add up. Her purse was still inside. Her medication untouched. Her phone still in the house. A woman doesn't just walk out and leave all of that behind. Investigators were starting to notice. And then, a neighbor changed everything. Section 5. The evidence cracks him open. The neighbor invited officers in, pulled up his security footage from earlier that morning. Chris stood right there in the room, watching the same screen. As the video played, investigators watched him. arms folded, shifting his weight, eyes drifting away from the screen. The neighbor noticed it too. Something was very wrong. Then came the phone records, the text messages, the timestamps, every piece tightening the net a little more. And then Chris agreed to take a polygraph. That decision sealed his fate. The examiner asked the questions. Did you kill your wife? Do you know where your family is? Are you lying? When it was over, the examiner's assessment was blunt. He had failed. Badly. The room got very small, very fast. Section 6, the confession. The interrogators didn't yell, didn't threaten. They were patient, methodical. One investigator offered him a lifeline. Maybe something happened during an argument. Maybe Shanann hurt the children. Maybe you just reacted. It was a way out. A story that let him look like less of a monster. He took it, for a moment. Chris admitted to killing Shanann, but blamed her for the deaths of the girls. Investigators didn't buy it. Neither did the evidence. And as the questioning continued, the truth finally came out. Chris had killed Shanann. Then he killed Bella. Then he killed Celeste. He transported their bodies to the oil field. And then he went to work, like nothing had happened. The nation was stunned, but one detail, above everything else, haunted people the most. Before she died, Bella asked her father a question, a heartbreaking question that investigators later revealed. A question that people who follow this case still can't stop thinking about. Section 7, verdict. The evidence was overwhelming. The confessions, the surveillance footage, the digital trail, the bodies recovered from the oil field. There would be no trial, no dramatic courtroom showdown. Chris Watts pleaded guilty. In November 2018, he was sentenced to multiple life terms. No possibility of parole. Ever. Section 8. Why this case still haunts us. Psychologists and investigators have spent years trying to explain what happened. They talk about emotional detachment, the ability to do something unthinkable while feeling almost nothing. They talk about compartmentalization, keeping separate lives so sealed off from each other that reality itself fractures. They talk about conflict avoidance, how someone who never says a hard thing out loud can be quietly building toward the darkest possible outcome. None of it explains murder, but all of it helps explain how someone can look completely normal while hiding something no one could imagine. The most chilling thing about this case? There was no explosion, no obvious breakdown, no warning sign that screamed, "Something is very wrong here." Just a quiet man, carrying a secret, until it was too late. Today, Chris Watts sits in a prison cell, serving multiple life sentences. Shanann is remembered for her fire, her warmth, and how fiercely she loved her children. Bella and Celeste are remembered for the joy they brought to everyone lucky enough to know them. 3 lives, gone. Countless others, changed forever. And yet people keep coming back to this case, searching for the moment it could have been stopped, searching for the sign that should have been obvious, searching for something that makes it make sense. But maybe that's exactly why this case never lets go. Because it forces us to sit with a question that has no comfortable answer. How well can we ever truly know the people closest to us? If this story moved you, share it. And if you want more true crime breakdowns like this, subscribe. We post every week.